What happens when one tennis player stops feeling like an individual athlete and starts feeling like an entire country? Cincinnati just found out. Because when Alex Eala arrived in Ohio, she didn't arrive alone. She brought thousands of Filipino fans with her. Some traveled across states. Some drove for hours. One group even planned a college reunion around seeing her play. And suddenly, a WTA 1000 tournament in Cincinnati started looking less like a traditional tennis event and more like a Filipino home game. But the most shocking part? Even the players on the other side of the net were noticing. World number 10 Amanda Anisimova had never faced Alex before. Yet before they even stepped onto the court, she already knew one thing. She was walking into an atmosphere unlike anything she had experienced before. And that tells you just how big the Alex Eala effect has become. Because this isn't really a story about tickets. It isn't even just a story about tennis. It's the story of what happens when a young athlete gives a global community something to believe in. And Cincinnati was about to see it up close. The moment Alex's name appeared on the Cincinnati Open entry list, Filipino fans started making plans. Not casual plans. Real plans. Travel plans. Family plans. Reunion plans. One group of Filipino fans, scattered across different parts of the United States, reportedly coordinated a college reunion around one thing: getting together in Cincinnati to watch Alex play. Think about that for a second. These people had jobs, families, different cities, different schedules, different lives. But they found a way to bring all of it together for a tennis match. Not a Grand Slam final. Not even a championship match. A second-round appearance at a WTA 1000 tournament in Ohio. Another fan had watched Alex compete in Toronto. Then came Cincinnati. Instead of flying, that fan drove roughly 8 hours to see her again. 8 hours on the road. For one player. And that's when the bigger picture became impossible to ignore. Alex wasn't simply attracting spectators. She was creating reasons for people to show up. Her breakthrough season had already changed her status on the WTA Tour. She had captured her first WTA Tour singles title in Washington at the Mubadala DC Open. She had reached the round of 16 at the National Bank Open in Toronto. And now Cincinnati was next. But there was something different waiting for her in Ohio. A community that had already shown it was willing to travel. A community that wasn't coming simply because tennis was happening. They were coming because Alex Eala was happening. And Cincinnati was ready to feel the difference. The Filipino community within Cincinnati itself is relatively small. But Ohio is home to a much larger Filipino-American population. And when the tournament arrived, the message was clear. They were coming. The Philippine flags started appearing throughout the stadium. Fans wore custom shirts. Messages like, fight, believe, represent. And then came the chants. Let's go, Alex. Over and over. Loud enough to change the feeling inside the stadium. Alex herself admitted that the experience was overwhelming. But not in a negative way. She understood what was happening. She understood that something much bigger than tennis was unfolding around her. She talked about how amazing it was to see the Filipino community showing up, enjoying tennis, and hopefully finding something new and joyful through the sport. That last part matters. Because Alex wasn't only talking about winning matches. She was talking about growing tennis. And that's exactly what her supporters were doing. They weren't simply filling seats. They were introducing an entirely new audience to the WTA. And then came another clue that this phenomenon was becoming impossible for the sport's biggest names to ignore. Amanda Anisimova, world number 10, one of the most accomplished young players in women's tennis. Before facing Alex, Anisimova was already talking about the atmosphere. She knew Alex had an enormous fan base. She knew the stadium would likely be packed. And she knew most of those fans would not be cheering for her. But her reaction was surprisingly relaxed. She said she loved a packed stadium. She loved a good atmosphere. And instead of complaining about the crowd, she planned to use the energy. That's important. Because when an opponent starts talking about your fans before the match even begins, your fan base has become part of the competitive environment. And Alex's fans were becoming exactly that. A force. An atmosphere. A presence. Anisimova had already heard what Alex's matches could feel like. She had seen the videos. She had heard the stories. And she had another player's description in mind. Naomi Osaka. 4-time Grand Slam champion. One of the biggest stars tennis has produced in the modern era. Osaka had watched Alex's matches and admitted she was stunned by the atmosphere. She compared it to something that sounds almost strange when you're talking about professional tennis. A basketball game. Not a quiet tennis court. Not polite applause between points. A basketball game. Noise. Chants. Flags. Emotion. A crowd completely invested in every moment. And once you understand Filipino sports culture, the comparison starts to make sense. Basketball has enormous cultural importance in the Philippines. The arenas can be loud. Fans can be relentless. Support isn't something that happens only after a great point. It's part of the entire experience. And now that energy was moving into tennis, Alex had even made comparisons to the atmosphere surrounding popular basketball teams in the Philippines. That wasn't just a clever line. It was a reflection of what her supporters were bringing with them. They weren't changing who they were when they entered a tennis stadium. They brought their culture with them. Their voices, their flags, their pride, their families, their excitement. And suddenly, tennis had to make room for it. Coco Gauff noticed too. The reigning US Open champion praised Alex for bringing a completely new demographic to the WTA Tour. She described what Alex was doing for tennis as something positive and recognized her as a role model. That's a huge statement, because the value of Alex Eala isn't measured only by rankings. It's measured by who is watching because of her, who is buying tickets because of her, who is discovering women's tennis because of her, and who might pick up a racket because they saw a Filipina competing on the biggest stages. That is where this story becomes much bigger than Cincinnati. But before Alex could face Amanda Anisimova, there was unfinished business waiting for her. Elena Gabriela Ruse. 2 years earlier, Ruse had been the player who stopped Alex one victory away from the US Open main draw. At the 2024 US Open qualifying tournament, Alex had reached the final round. One more win, one more step, and she would have made the Grand Slam main draw. Instead, Ruse came back to win. For the teenage Alex, it was another painful ending to a Grand Slam qualifying campaign. Back then, she was still trying to prove she belonged. But everything had changed. Alex entered Cincinnati as the number 17 seed. She was ranked number 20 in the world. And she didn't need a wild card. She didn't need qualifying. She was already among the tournament's seeded players. The difference between the Alex of 2024 and the Alex of 2026 could hardly have been clearer. And when she finally faced Ruse again, Alex played like someone who understood exactly how far she'd come. She dropped her serve in the opening game. For a moment, there was an opening, but it didn't last. Alex immediately took control. She broke Ruse 3 times in the first set. She produced 9 winners. She forced Ruse into 11 errors. And after only 34 minutes, the scoreboard read 6-1. The second set followed the same pattern. Alex moved ahead 3-0. Then Ruse called for a medical timeout involving her right foot. And just when the match seemed to be heading toward its conclusion, lightning around the venue forced a suspension. When play was cleared to resume, Ruse could not continue. The match was over. Alex had won. Her first Cincinnati victory. Her 8th win in her last 9 matches. And, perhaps most importantly, another chapter of unfinished business had been closed. But Alex's response afterward revealed something about the player she has become. She didn't celebrate Ruse's retirement. She didn't turn the moment into revenge theater. Instead, Alex acknowledged that nobody likes to finish a match that way and wished Ruse a speedy recovery. That is the difference between revenge and growth. The teenager who once walked away devastated from US Open qualifying was gone. In her place was a player capable of controlling a match, handling the pressure, and still showing respect afterward. And waiting on the other side of the next round was Amanda Anisimova. Now the story became even more interesting, because Anisimova wasn't just another opponent. She was world number 10, a former teenage prodigy, a 2-time Grand Slam finalist, A player who had reached the Wimbledon and US Open finals in 2025. A player who had won WTA 1000 titles. On paper, this was a completely different challenge. But Alex had already beaten 7 top 10 players during the season. She had beaten Iga Swiatek twice. She had beaten Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, and others among the game's elite. So the question wasn't whether Alex belonged on the court with Amanda Anisimova. She had already answered that question. The real question was, could she handle what came with it? Because Anisimova wasn't only preparing for Alex. She was preparing for Alex's army. And that army had been getting louder with every tournament. Toronto had seen it. Washington had seen it. Cincinnati was next. And the numbers weren't the most interesting part. The stories were people rearranging their schedules, friends crossing state lines, families showing up with flags, fans driving 8 hours, people turning tennis matches into reunions. That is how a fan base becomes a movement. And that's why Naomi Osaka's basketball comparison suddenly feels so important. She wasn't simply describing noise. She was describing identity. A tennis crowd usually gathers because it loves tennis. Alex's crowd gathers because it loves Alex. And through Alex, it gets to celebrate something larger. The Philippines. The diaspora. A shared connection to home. That connection becomes especially powerful for Filipinos living abroad. Because when thousands of people gather in another country carrying Philippine flags, chanting for a Filipina athlete, something changes. For a few hours, the stadium can feel like home. Miami, New York, Melbourne, Dubai, London, Washington, Toronto, and now Cincinnati. Different cities, different countries, same flags, same chants, same name, Alex. That is why this isn't simply a local Cincinnati story. It is a global Filipino story. Alex has become a meeting point for a community spread across the world. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that she actively embraces that connection. She has used Filipino language and symbolism in moments with supporters. Her messages, gestures, and public identity continually remind fans that she understands who is standing behind her. And the relationship works both ways. The fans tell Alex, "You are not alone." Alex tells them, "I see you." That exchange is powerful. Because sports have always been about belonging. But Alex is showing what happens when an athlete gives an entire diaspora a reason to gather publicly around a shared identity. And the WTA has a decision to make. Because this kind of audience doesn't appear every day. You can't manufacture it with an advertising campaign. You can't simply buy it. You can't create thousands of people willing to drive across states, organize reunions, wave flags, and spend hours in the stands by putting up a billboard. It has to be earned. Alex earned it. And now the sport has to figure out what to do with it. That's the opportunity. But it's also the warning. Because if tournaments don't understand the audience Alex is bringing, someone else eventually will. Sponsors will notice. Broadcasters will notice. Tournament organizers will notice. And fans will notice whether the sport is listening. Alex herself has been remarkably clear about the pressure. She has admitted that the attention can feel heavy. But she also understands where it came from. The work came first. The spotlight came later. She knows she wouldn't be experiencing these moments without everything she did before them. And she knows the experiences won't continue unless she keeps doing the work. That may be the most important lesson in this entire story. Because the crowd isn't the reason Alex has reached this level. The crowd is the reward for reaching it. The flags don't win matches. The chants don't hit forehands. The fans can't save a second serve at 5-5. Alex still has to do that herself. And that's why this movement has the potential to last. It isn't built only on hype. It's built on performance, on victories, on resilience, on a player who keeps giving people another reason to come back. The Washington title gave them one. Toronto gave them another. Cincinnati gave them another. And then came the next question. What happens when Alex walks into a Grand Slam with this following? What happens at the US Open? What happens when the Filipino community in New York gets behind her? What happens when thousands more fans discover her? What happens when younger Filipino athletes watch this and realize that professional tennis can have a place for them too? That's where the real legacy begins. Because perhaps the biggest thing Alex Eala is changing isn't the atmosphere inside tennis stadiums. It's the imagination outside them. A young Filipino kid watching Alex can now look at a tennis court and think, maybe me. That's powerful. And that's why Coco Gauff's comments matter. That's why Naomi Osaka's comments matter. That's why Amanda Anisimova noticing the crowd matters. And that's why the stories coming out of Cincinnati matter. They're evidence that something has shifted. The shift is already happening. The question is how far it goes. Because Alex Eala has done more than win matches in Cincinnati. She has given thousands of Filipinos a reason to gather, cheer, and feel represented. And every time another Philippine flag rises in another stadium, the message becomes harder to ignore. Alex is not walking this road alone. She is carrying a community with her. And if Cincinnati was only the beginning, the next stadium may be even louder. The tennis world has been warned. The Alex Eala effect is here. And the world is finally paying attention too.